first band was Bring the Horizon. Ollie Sykes reached out to me on Instagram, and I actually couldn't believe it. I thought it was a joke. I said to him, I was like, "Is this a joke? Are you punking me? Like, are you fucking with me here?"
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Jesse Nyberg Podcast. I have a special guest, Dan Barkle. Really excited to talk to him. He's actually been probably one of the most requested guests that I've had on Instagram. So welcome, man.
Thank you. Most requested, one of the most requested. That's quite an honor.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like part of you being a little less inactive adds that layer of mystery. Like people want to hear from you and stuff.
I know. Lately, I've been off the grid for 4 months now.
Oh yeah,
which is quite a long time. But yeah, I'm pleased that people want to hear from me somehow.
Yeah, and I noticed you said on the story that you shared, you said talking about my comeback to Instagram. How come have you just been too busy pretty much?
It's been a multiple of different things, to be honest. At the start of the year, COVID and everything, I had a bit of a tough time getting my head around what I wanted to do. I had different job opportunities that meant I could have eventually moved out of London. Then those things didn't really align, so I stayed at home for a bit. Then the rest of the year has been like there was like a period where I did a lot of work for some really big people that are some of my best work, I think. And I just felt like I needed a break. I think a lot of people do feel like you're in this rat race for relevancy.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like the emergence of NFTs, which we'll probably end up talking about, I felt like it kind of drowned out people that were working for clients, and it ended up making it more like everybody's an artist. All these people emerge out of nowhere, and it felt massively overwhelming for me. And I felt like, I may need a break from this. Because I need to focus less on looking at other people's work and comparing myself, because you do have this, what do you call it? You just completely doubt yourself.
Yeah, like imposter syndrome or something.
Imposter syndrome, yeah.
Yeah.
Find a word for that. Yeah, I had massive imposter syndrome. And then I ended up helping out a mate on a climate change project for 3 or 4 months. And it just gave me at least a life to think that I'm actually doing something that's my comfort zone, but it's for the greater good in a sense. And then to the point now where I've just kind of to myself for the last couple of months and been building up some work. I want to do a new website and then just relaunch this new like pretense and my new mental health, a new way of looking at everything and having a fresh approach. Yes.
Yeah, that's funny because you took on that climate change project instead of getting further into the NFT stuff, which is kind of like the opposite of that, because I know there's people that have some issues with that stuff.
That was sure, man. Like that was big thing. Like at first with NFTs, I was there was two ways that I've looked at it. First was I felt like a lot of people were putting out. There's no shade to people that want to just art out there, but I kind of felt like I could see through a lot of what people were doing, and they were just getting like tutorials from like Grayscale Gorilla or any Cinema 4D or Blender tutorial, just sort of expanding on it and then making money off it. And I don't know, I just something about that where I thought it was a little bit disingenuous and a bit of a money grab. Secondly, I kind of thought that I couldn't understand to get my head around the idea that you would pay for something that you couldn't physically have from an era, in the 90s. And I think that was like the last decade, I guess, the last era of having the internet for the majority of that. So it was pretty attached to physical items, like collecting CDs and artwork and skateboards and clothing. So the concept to me of buying something in a digital space just didn't really connect with me. I've sort of got my head around it now, but not to the point where I've actually wanted to endeavor in it. And then thirdly, the environmental thing. You don't know what you can trust on the internet, right? But there was a couple of Medium articles that came out and found that they seem to suggest that the amount of power used in them was just not warrant money that you would get in return. I'm quite conscious of the environment anyway, but a double-edged sword, isn't it? Like make some money and have a more comfortable life, or contribute to something which no one actually knows the impact of it properly yet, but could develop to be something quite big and scary going down in the future. I don't know. I feel like I did the right thing.
Yeah.
Endeavoring on a climate change project, but maybe NFTs will become more better for the environment going forward. Who knows?
Right. It's funny because you mentioned like you saw a lot of the attention going on that and taking away from like client work, and I kind of saw a similar trend in where I felt like everyone was not really being like a designer anymore. Like it was more just like digital art. Like they weren't even looking for clients. Like they just wanted to live off of selling like art that they made with no prompt, or like an NFT or something that wasn't commissioned. And I've never really thought that I would be doing that, because like I've always thought of, the goal is to get the most clients and the best clients that I want. I never considered myself like a fine artist,
Well, there are some artists that I'm friends with, to name a few, Malavida and Nathan Riley. They have produced work before the NFT trend that is absolutely perfect for it, and more power to them for making bank on it and getting a good return on it and being more comfortable. Because I know Alicia was from Malavida. She relies heavily on her income from prints and her own work and selling stuff. I don't think she does a lot of client work from what she told me. So this is absolutely perfect for her. And same with Nathan runs Green Chameleon in Bristol, but on the side, he's been doing this surrealist 3D work. And when he brought that out, it was so unique. I can understand why people would buy that. But there's just that contrast of people really just doing it for a money grab. And you see like celebrities just jumping on it and hiring designers. Hey, can you make me an NFT? I mean, I've had that many times.
Yeah, it
to me in an email and be like, hey, can you make me an NFT? And it's like, well, aren't you looking to sell this for, what platform are you going to put it on? Like there's all these different things, you have to license this out to them, on that you get a return on it as well. And I don't know, it seems like a bit of a money grab partly, but I mean, on the other side, there are some amazing artists that are making really incredible work. And I'm all for artists and designers getting return that they get from in monetary terms, because decades, 10 years, decades. Designers and artists tend to get fucked over.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, they tend to get fucked over when it comes to getting paid. People always trying to, clients, for example, will always try and push you down on your rate or a project fee, because they're just trying to get the best out of you. I don't think they actually see the value in the work. So I think this now is a way more power to the artist. So if clients come to them now and they say, hey, can you do this project for me? And they'll be like, well, it's going to cost this much. And if they say, no, can you do it for this? Can you do it for a lot lower? No, I don't have that budget. They're going to be like, well, I just made X amount on an NFT. I don't actually have to delve into this client project, which I don't actually want to do. So I think now that I guess designers and artists can barter and they can demand the fees that they really deserve. I think that's great.
Yeah, that is it's a good aspect to it. And I didn't think we'd get into this right away, so I wanted to ask you a little bit about then we'll move on to some other things. But you were kind of like with the NFT space, I felt like you were kind of a what do you call it? Like an early adopter, right? Like I didn't see a lot of stuff going on with it until you did it, and then you were already like kind of done with it, and then it kind of like blew up, And I was wondering kind of how did you feel about the whole experience with like the post-digital stuff and everything?
Truthfully, it killed it for me with post-digital. I mean, I do intend to bring it back.
Okay.
I think like Matt Vernon and Cavion, I think from Foundation, they're great guys, and I have so much respect for them, and I feel like we got a good relationship, especially with Matt. He's such a sick dude. I feel like they have nailed it now. I mean, Foundation is just all over the map, right? They're verified and they're massively well known, especially for the way that they've designed and branded Foundation, but just the way that they've allowed lots of artists and designers to come into to this space without, like Nifty Gateway and some of the others. There's a bit of a protocol where you have to go jump through hoops basically to get signed off, right? With Foundation, I found that I just accepted anybody, but it was such a cool, exciting thing that you could get an invite. The whole process that they figured out and they've evolved onto now is perfect, and they are killing it. And I'm so happy for Matt. But I think when they approached me, this was a bit of a weird space, a bit of a weird concept, because I wanted to basically sell physical items with crypto. And it was all based on the market and whatever coin they had at the time. I think it was DAI, D-A-I. And it just became massively confusing. I won't go into too much detail because it's quite a private matter, but the whole process of it was really fun to begin with. I'd always wanted to do a clothing brand again. I did one previously at university, but this was like a proper professional one where I wanted to actually focus on the quality of the print and packaging, have a whole really good experience of it. It just became a little bit messy with what can come of it all, and it just became a little bit confusing with the whole crypto thing. And I think that's probably why they abandoned it and then moved on to NFTs, because there's no confusion there. It's digital art and there's nothing involved with physical items. I mean, it just became very stressful. And to deal with it on my own, I actually didn't anticipate the actual work that goes into creating a clothing brand on your own. I'll be in Chapari right now. We're doing really well with it. But I found it quite stressful on my own while balancing client projects at the same time. Just the magnitude of the work that goes into shipping items all the way from a certain country because you want them to be ethical, ethically sourced cotton, but then I was shipping them from LA going on a cargo, so I was like, wait, I'm just completely undoing what I've done. I'm just exposing myself right now. But having to then go to local printers in London that were trying to give them business under a pandemic. I've spent countless nights, weeks, doing every single t-shirt and making all the little perfections in the rib cuffs, putting all the packaging together, doing laser cutting for the tags. There's so much work that goes into it, and I just didn't feel like it really hit it wanted to, just because of it being under crypto. The way I would finish off on this is that I think I actually would have sold out if I'd done it on a proper or a unique what's the word, just a traditional,
I think so too,
e-commerce, because people would have just not been confused. But I had people that said to me, hey Dan, I really want to buy this, but the whole crypto DAI thing really confused me and I couldn't pick a size, and that like crushed me really, because I feel like I've still got stock now that I'm going to try and get rid of on e-commerce, just on the normal site, but I feel like it just killed my drive for it, and I was kind of glad when it would finish, when I just shut down the store. But after this break that I've had this year, I'm ready to sell these items, get it back up, and then maybe do some unique one-off sweatshirts or t-shirts, whatever, with a different take on it. But the concept that I had for it was pretty unique, and I was really happy with it, and it surprised me as a person and what I'm interested in. People did vibe with it, but I think the crypto element killed it. And I think ultimately you should keep physical clothing brands on e-commerce and then stick with NFTs and digital art in crypto, because it's just too confusing to marry the two together.
Yeah, you're kind of too ahead of your time for your own good, in that whole situation. Like, I think
it was exciting.
If it would have happened now, it may have been a different story,
For sure. I mean, it was exciting when they first approached me, and the roster that they had originally was really exciting. And I felt, like I was one of maybe 10 And I
Yeah.
was quite honored, I was quite humbled that they approached me and they were like, we want you to
Hmm.
do this, when they could have gone to anybody, and they did go to a lot of really big names. And I
Yeah.
was among that. So I was really stoked that they trusted me, and I'm stoked that they're doing really well now. But yeah,
That's cool.
digital
Yeah.
will be on commerce going forward.
I'm excited to see how you bring it back and everything. I know we were chatting a little bit before on like through Instagram and stuff, and we were waiting for you to get a little more settled. So how's your new studio and everything working for you?
That's amazing. No, man, thank you. Me and my two best friends, Will and Heath, decided to ditch the old studio that was a little bit out of the way and in a
Yeah.
rougher area. And we thought, you know what, you got to spend money to make money. So
Mhm.
we invested quite early on into this studio down in central London, or towards south of the river, but it's more central.
Mhm.
And we've just, when you see on Instagram, Pinterest, and you see these studios that are taking them really nice photos, and you're like, fuck, I really want to do that. We were just like, yeah, let's go for it, let's do it. So we money together. We started renting it out. We put some custom desks together. We did a lot of DIY.
Yeah.
We put the work into it. So custom desks. We've a neon sign. We've got like
That's
a cool
cool.
chilling area, and now we've put up a huge mirror, which unfortunately has a crack in it because it was just absolute nightmare to get it up a flight of stairs. And now we've put a little gym in it as well. So we have a bit of a routine now where we go into the studio in the morning, get work done, finish at 5, do a workout in the evening, and then we hang out in the evening, and it's absolutely perfect. It just does so much wonder for your mental health by having that process and routine now.
Mhm.
I'd recommend to any designer, if you can, investing, having a studio, and just moving yourself from working from home. Obviously under a pandemic it's difficult, and it's different it's a different environment that we have to live in now, but having that space to go to is just, workload has just become so much better because I've got a space that I know that I'm gonna put down and grind.
Yeah. And you guys are all kind of working in that communal space and are friends, but you're all working on like individual things, right?
We're all freelancers. So Heath he doesn't work in the creative industry, but he's our project manager when we do work together. And Will is an artist.
Yeah.
And he does really cool resin portraits. And then on the side, he's started Studio 11, which is where it exists with the neon sign, is just an environmental, animal rights and climate change studio startup that he has created to create content in that space. It's going to be different to what you'd normally see, because I think a lot of the content in the vegan and environmental space tends to be a little bit outdated. So the approach for this has been to create more modern, better looking design that would figure in that space. And so far we've done a couple of projects together and it's worked out really well. So it's nice to have the two to balance myself between.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I wanted to get to this a little bit earlier, but I think you're a really talented designer, and I know a lot of people that look up to you in this space. And I was wondering if you could just give me a little bit of background on kind of your journey as a designer and kind of how you got into where you're at now with the studio and everything.
I've been working in the industry for about over 6 years now. When I was at university, my design was a lot different to what it is now. I went to university. I studied graphic design, and straight out of university, I think the education system, especially in the UK, it's very much like they don't really teach you about freelancing and going your own route. It's, unless you're in fine art, graphic design, the norm is to go straight into an agency or a studio.
Yeah.
And there's quite a massive amount in the UK, especially in London and Bristol. And I studied in Bath, which is very close to Bristol. And straight out of uni, I got offered a job at Dyson, the vacuum brand.
Yeah. And
previously, like in my third year, there was a lot of designers that would come in from Dyson that would almost like headhunt, and my name was put forward for that. Went for an interview, and I didn't really think anything of it. I thought, this is a really good opportunity. My parents were obviously very, very in favor of it because it's a really well-known brand.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what I was getting myself into. But I just went there. I became part of the brand team, and I worked there for a year. And it's almost just cutting your teeth in a sense, if I think that's the saying, where you're just like learning your trade and need to understand like client interface and client interface. That's not the right word, but just how you manage yourself in a company, right?
Sure.
And this is the thing is with my design journey, which is quite prevalent in all of it, is that I got really bored.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel challenged at all. I didn't feel like I was doing what I really wanted to do. I was like, why am I working at Dyson? And no, I'm not dissing them, but it just wasn't for me. I feel like it was a place where you'd be a designer for 20 years and you'd go and retire there because the wages were really good. But it wasn't that adventurous. They were pretty set in their ways, their branding and the way they advertise. So from there, I decided to quit. I didn't have any jobs works at that time. I just thought, fuck it, I'm going to become a freelancer. I'm going to try and do some bits on the side and hopefully move to London, because I had a couple of people reach out to me from agencies being like, hey, we like your work. I'd done from university, like put online on Behance. And I don't actually think I'd started an Instagram page at that time. So I went home, passed my driving test, and then I got an offer from Stereo Creative, and they're based in Shoreditch in London. I thought this is the opportunity I need. So I moved to London for them for 2.5 years. And then I don't know whether to really be honest. Okay, fuck it, I'll be honest. So when I was at Stereo, it was really, really good for the first 1.5 years. I absolutely loved it. Stereo basically were an agency that went across branding and advertising for lots of cool clients, and they range from quite big ones like the BBC, Virgin, I think, and the other ones that they had. Some really exciting brands, and then there were some that were just like startups and stuff. And I met some of my best friends now from at that agency. I had such a great experience, and just working there, and meeting people and putting myself out into the world and becoming more of an adult and just becoming a better person and becoming a better designer. I was thrown in as a junior, and a lot of the work that I was given I would see it as midweight to senior. They put me on pitches very, very early on because I seemed to be able to cut it and cope with the pressure, because it was very much like how you'd see it now is that especially an agency, it's almost like you work right up until the deadline to pitch stuff, or even on client projects you do very, very late nights. That's just the standard of the industry, and I think it's like grind culture, which I'm not for it at all, but that's what it was, and it makes you work hard. And they got Nike on board, and Nike, the biggest, one of the biggest sports brands in the world. That's a client that every designer wants to work with, and they were really good to begin with. But as I have been on Instagram, where I've spoken about how clients treat people, there was an experience where for a project I was hired, or I wasn't hired, but I was part of the team that this project, and it spanned over a couple of weekends. And just something about it at the time, I felt like I'd slightly outgrown the agency and wanted to do my own thing. I'd started an Instagram called Dank Type at the time. I was working on my own portfolio heavily all the time in my free time. And I felt like I just wanted to do stuff in music at that point. So I was a little bit fed up. Attitude probably wasn't great. I was just driven to do better. And this experience over a couple of weekends, Nike, they just treated the designers there like shit. They just didn't have a care for their time. Wasn't getting paid for it as well, which I found quite annoying. I don't like it when people are not paid for their time.
Sure.
Especially on the weekend. And so just a little bit outspoken the whole time, and I did something really stupid where I just spoke out against some of the people at Nike, and kind of just showed that I was not in a good place, and that I wasn't standing for how they were treating the designers, and I shouldn't have done that. Ultimately, I was fired from that because someone in the team snitched on me. And I'm so glad that they did that and it got me fired, because I
Yeah.
wouldn't be in a position I am today, because
Hmm.
I was literally dropped like that. And like, fuck, what do I do now? I've just been fired. My parents are going to kill me. How am I going to pay for the flat that I'm in currently? How am I going to make an income? And luckily, like, I put the groundwork in before on my Instagram uh, and the Behance page, and kind of hit the ground running with freelance. And I haven't really looked back, but put in that position where I fucked up big time and made a bit of a fool of myself, and defend for yourself now. And it was like,
Yeah.
yeah, it was do or die really. And just carried on and really drove with what I wanted to do. And yeah, I'm really glad that that happened now. Obviously, it's not good.
Yeah.
I'm, the agency and the people that run that look at me fondly, and they told me disappointed they were at me, and fair enough. Like, I'd probably let them down, but I think it's all worked out for the better now.
Yeah. And it's kind of representative of like how that kind of lifestyle is. Like when I worked at an agency too, I know how we would work super late, like go home at like midnight sometimes, and there was never anything as simple as like, thanks for staying late. It was like, all right, you did your job, like good for you. And
Yeah.
you did all that, right? And then you worked these long weekends, and then one day you just happen to say like, hey, like, can you just not completely treat me like shit? And they're like, all right, you could leave. And that's just,
That was essentially how I saw it. Really, I don't like this attitude from companies where because you've signed that contract,
mm-hmm.
that you work for them, they think that the hours that you actually do, well, what I was doing was like 9:30 till 6. Never finished at 6.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
you're never paid more for that. And as a freelancer now, if I was to go into an agency, or if I was to do this extra hours, you charge for it and you get paid for it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, it seems like the norm when you work for a company full time, that you're just expected to just give your life up for these people. And
Yeah, it's terrible.
what you're essentially doing is you're working for someone else. You're not working for your own dream. You're putting money into someone else's pocket. You're fueling someone else's dream. It was their dream of creating this bigger agency, and it's not my dream.
Mm-hmm.
I just saw the value in what I was doing, and I just thought that I was just very, very bitter about how they treated people in that agency.
Yeah.
They've turned it around. I can see they look like an amazing agency now. But at the time, it just, I don't know. I didn't like how Nike spoke to me and how they treated me weekend. So,
well, good for you. I mean, it worked out, obviously. And what's funny is I have a kind of story about something similar to that. That same agency I worked for, when I was working there, I was like working late and getting this like specific wage, and then they actually hired me like a few months ago to do like some freelance work, and it was pretty much like quadruple what they're paying me originally. So I got like a nice little revenge on them, because I just told them something like really high, because I was like, I don't even care if they say no, because I don't even like these people, right? And then it worked. So worked out
you have
well.
to get the high ground.
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, and now, if you work at an agency and you're a freelancer, you can make such good money, especially in London.
Mm-hmm.
But when you work full time for people, if you're like junior to midweight area level, you tend to make that much money.
Sure.
And you just white yourself into the ground. I was so burnt out, because I was just constantly working. And then the thing is, when you're constantly working, you don't have time for a routine to do anything else. So my mental health massively failed me. I ended up going to the doctors and being put on antidepressants, because I felt like my life was worthless. My physical health as well. I put on 3.5 stone. I just looked terrible, and I just, my parents said to me, they were like, what's going on with you? Like, you're just really letting yourself go, and what are you getting out of this? I had to really evaluate and think, I'm not actually getting anything from this at all, other than it's negatives. There's no positives at all. So at the time, if I look back on it now, I didn't have the balls to actually go and hand my notice in, because I just felt so under pressure, and I felt like I was quite valued at the time, I guess. I didn't feel like I wanted to let any of them down. I loved the bosses there. They were such great people. They were so kind to me, but I didn't want to let them down. So I just didn't have the balls to hand my notice and just go out alone. But, the universe worked itself out. I was a dick. I got fired, but it's turned out all right now.
Yeah, there's that weird feeling where no matter how a company is or how easily they'd fire you, if you have any sense of like morality or like compassion in your heart, you feel like if I leave, I'm going to leave them like hung out to dry, like they're going to be screwed. They're not going to survive without me. And then you leave and they could just get anyone else again, like not in the worst way,
You're so replaceable. Anybody is indispensable in an agency like that. It's a sad thing, really. I mean, I was probably replaced very quickly, and rightly so. But you have to put yourself first sometimes. And the reason that I speak about this and bring it up, because previously I have hid that, and I've told a lie and said that I just left. But I think it's important for me to come out and say that I got fired, because it just shows that I feel like I've done quite well off the back of being fired and in my freelance career, because I've been really driven with it.
Yeah,
and I just
definitely
want people to see that you can fuck up and you can fail. And I failed multiple times. The magnitude of how much I've fucked up is crazy, to the point where I might not even be a designer at some points. Like at university, second year, the pressure of this project got to me. All my plans fucked up and failed. And I ended up plagiarizing. But it was literally because I was panicking. And it came to the end of the second year when they handed this project in, and my tutors called me in and they said, "And can we just talk about this project that you've handed in?" And it looked good. It was a magazine about metal, and it was called The Breakdown. And I absolutely loved doing it, but I was so under pressure that I just plagiarized. I put content in that I claim was mine. I shouldn't have done that, but just so scared of having anything. And they called me in and they said, "Dan, where did you get these images from? Did you take this? Did you do this?" And I just, my hands up. I was like, I didn't do any of this. I was under pressure. And they were like, "Look, we understand. You have to redo this project within like 3 weeks now, before the end of second year." I think everybody had gone home at this point. And managed to do redo of the project in 2 to 3 weeks. It was something completely different. And it was literally, if I didn't pass that, I would have been kicked off the course.
Oh, really?
And yeah, that bad. Because it went to like a weird court, deals with education systems that with plagiarism and doing things wrong on a course. They said to me at the time, like, there's a really, really slim chance that you're going to get first now, or you're going to get a high grade. And university at that time, it felt like if you don't get a high grade, you don't get a first or a 2-1, then there's no chance you're getting a job of it. So gave me the fire in my belly to be like, "No, I'm going to prove you wrong." And I ended up getting a first in my third year because I worked so hard, but I needed that to happen. I needed to plagiarize. I needed to fail. Same with stereo. Like, I needed to fuck up in order to do this, because you don't fail and you're constantly being told that you're great over your career. You're never going to look where to improve. You're always going to just think that you're God's gift.
Sure.
It's anybody listening right now, it's so important that you fail and do bad things and lose clients and fuck up, because it makes you a better person and designer for sure.
Yeah, and what's good about all those kind of failures and things that happen, like in one avenue, is like you had the foresight and like just, I guess, like drive to be doing all your own stuff on the side, like you were saying. And I'm sure it was a lot easier for you to, get back into freelancing and all this other stuff when you left that, or got fired from that other job, because you put in that work on the weekends. Like, I know, I'm not sure if you had already created this at the time, but your whole like Dan Barkle like identity with the smiley face and everything, that's like super awesome. And I feel like that was definitely could have helped you a lot with like getting into that world.
That identity was just off the back of being bitter of, I think it was after I'd left Dyson, just felt like I wasn't doing it. I didn't feel like I achieved that much that year that I was there. I'm meeting one of my best friends now there, two great friends, I'd say. The emojis in Apple, right, where it's the upside down smiley face. It's almost like a sarcastic smile.
Mm-hmm.
And I just felt like represented me because I was such a sarcastic bastard at the time.
Yeah.
I thought rather than just doing a normal smiley face, I'd do that, and that would represent me and my sarcastic attitude, and being a bit outspoken, and that's kind of what that summarized at the time. And I created like a little campaign around it. Barkle aboard.
Yeah, like I love that.
And I did it. I was obsessed with holographic floor at the time. Did that, and I sent these packs out to agencies, and that's actually what got me my job at Stereo in London, by giving them that pack, and being impressed with me taking the initiative rather than doing an email. Like any other designer would, you kind of have to push yourself out there and do something a little bit different and eye-opening.
Yeah, that was one thing that I was actually very thankful for, that I was taught like in college, that when I was at school, one of my professors, she was kind of old school, but one thing I took from her, she was always like, bring something that you've created that represents you to like interviews and stuff that they can just have. That way maybe it'll be laying on their desk or whatever, and they'll remember you a lot more than you're just some other email, right? So like it's good to have that stuff, because it shows that not only do you care, but you're paying for that. You're just making these printed things for no money. So it's like,
I think that's the thing, when you're really pushing for a job, you've unfortunately again spend money to make money. You have to do that. You have to do a job either to make that money, or just do stuff to fund that ambition. And I think that a lot of people just don't tend to want to push that far, and I think the people that do that end up going really far from experience. So it's really worth doing that, just going that extra mile, even if it's gonna bankrupt you, not make you homeless, but
yeah. And then after you kind of started on your own path and everything, I know you do a lot of work in the music industry, and a lot of like, what was I going to ask you? How was like the experience working with like Bring Me the Horizon and North Lane and all those like type of whatever, metalcore bands, or however you want to call them?
But for a small backstory, one of my best friends, Fraser, I met him at Treguy, which was a foundation course. It was the bridge between college and university. And growing up, I was obsessed with, or I was very, very different to whatever kids, I guess, in my school, in terms of what I listened to and what I was into. So I listened to System of a Down, Nirvana, who else was it? Linkin Park, Aiden, Taking Back Sunday.
Yeah.
Everybody else listened to like what was in the charts, and that was me, like grungy, like metal music. And I kind of away from that when I went through school, and I was around I look at it now as the wrong crowd. It went away from what I was actually into. And when I went to Treguy and I met Fraser, he was obsessed with metal, and we're great friends today. I see him all the time, and introduced me to that genre of music again, and just like revitalized something in me. And I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to do stuff for these sort of bands. Bring Me the Horizon, Flame, Asking Alexandria at the time. We were into Bullet for My Valentine, and we'd go and do gigs all the time. I just had this is my identity now, I'd say. It's like people know me as the guy that doesn't look like he likes metal, but obsessed with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, going through Dyson, college as well. Sorry, not college. University and Stereo. All that period. In my free time, I would just create concept work for those bands. Bring Me the Horizon. I think Silent Planet. I did some concepts for Bury Tomorrow. North Lane, all of those, because I just wanted to work with them so badly. That's all I wanted to do. I just kept grinding and doing stuff in my own time, and looking back on them now, they were terrible, but they hit at that point, and eventually they saw what I was doing and reached out to me. I think the first band was Bring Me the Horizon. Ollie Sykes reached out to me on Instagram, and I actually couldn't believe it. I thought it was a joke. Said to him, I was like, is this a joke? Are you punking me? Like, are you fucking with me here? He was like, no, I want you to do stuff for
That's funny.
Bring Me the Horizon. I want you to do stuff for Drop the Dead, Church, which is Ollie's restaurant in Sheffield. Just kind of snowballed from there, really. I think having that platform to work for, I'd see Bring Me the Horizon as probably one of the biggest metal bands, and they've progressed more into a mainstream audience now.
Sure.
By putting myself out there and doing that, it's just given me that credibility, I guess. But I feel like I'm so grateful, and I feel so lucky that I've that period that I was able to do that for them, because
Mm-hmm.
they've inspired me to listen to Bring Me the Horizon for over 10 years now. And North Lane, I think, is probably the same. So my two favorite bands, and I'm currently working with
That's
North Lane
cool.
now and Bring Me the Horizon. I've done my time. I don't know if I would do stuff for them again, but I've done a lot of work for them. I've felt so proud of what I've done. I
Yeah.
felt like I've lived my dream. Like I could retire now and not do design. I've done what I want to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it seems like you not only like, in my opinion, but to like theirs and the consumers, that you've done a great job, because I was looking through some of your work. You have the original Bring Me the Horizon stuff and the stuff for North Lane. And it looks like they just kept coming back to you pretty much for a lot of different
Yeah,
albums and art direction and whatnot.
with Bring Me the Horizon, to begin with, I'd just done it was just stuff for Ludens. Well, that
Mm-hmm.
mainly before that it was just tour stuff. So I did those spray paint tour
Yeah, those
advertisements
are
that went
cool.
across Instagram. And I did the festival All Points East. That was an incredible experience of being put on that and designing it, and then going to the festival because it was in London.
That was like the
And then
typographic one, right? With all the different colorways and kind of stuff.
there's different colorways for all the different people that were on that bill, because it
Mm-hmm.
was All Points East. Normally it's quite like chill music or rap, or they never really delve into doing like a metal day, and
Oh,
that was the
okay.
first time. And Bring Me the Horizon headlined it, and Ollie was like, I don't really want to use the branding for All Points East. I want to do our own thing. And I was like, yeah, that's a great idea. So we created this whole campaign of it being really grungy, and that at that time that was the style, it being very much like textured with paper, and
Mm-hmm.
really spontaneous colors, vibrant colors, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Just doing my first. When you come up to London and you see like billboard stuff, as a designer, you always think, I really want to be able to see my work on that bigger scale. And when I saw that, and it was across the festival as well, and in Brixton and all these different places, it's just like
That's
pinch
dope.
me moment to see that. And then eventually went into Ludens, their single, and that again, this is a good example of your work out there and show that you want to do your job, because it's a single that was on that game. Oh, what was it called? Had Norman Reedus in it. I've forgotten the name now. It's basically like a walking simulator. It was done by
Mm.
that Japanese studio. And they just had a single that was on that, and they were going to do was just put the artwork out for that and just say, oh, we did a song for this. But then at the time I had Ollie's number. I reached out to him and I said, I've just come up with this concept,
Yeah.
Ludens. Heard the song. I just thought, well, I'll put this together, see what he thinks. He came back and he was like, oh, man, you've just inspired me. Let's create a whole campaign around this.
Yeah.
Literally just by texting him that, reaching out to him saying, well, this is an idea. He then came back to me, and we ended up creating this whole campaign for Ludens, which spanned over a live stream. Like the whole Instagram grid was completely
That's nice.
ended. I think it was like 12, no, 3, 6, 9. Yeah, 12 squares.
Yeah.
I did the whole thing. Crazy project. The turnaround was stupid because I put myself in that position.
Mhm.
I ended up sleeping in the studio at the time 2 days straight. I barely had any sleep. I think I had like 3 hours sleep.
Damn.
Just got up, stepped on a sofa there, and carried on working.
Yeah.
The actual artwork that summarizes that single now, where I think it's the hard drive that I did.
Mhm.
Wasn't signed off until 3.5 minutes before he actually put it out, and it went on Radio 1. But
Damn.
that's how crazy quick that was.
Yeah.
Doing it right up to the mark. They were like, we're dropping it with Annie Mac at 5.
Mhm.
I was like, not done yet. This was like 3:30. I was like, it's not done. And we ended up going literally right up to the wire. Ollie wasn't replying to my text. I was like, please sign this off now. I turned it over and he was like, yeah, it's all good. And it went out. I don't know how we got onto that, but yeah, that was a bit of a crazy story. That's what it's
Yeah.
like working with Ollie. It's very spontaneous and very quick, but very rewarding at the same time.
Yeah, that's great though that you kind of took that initiative and you really love these bands always growing up, and just were like, hey, look at this. And then it turned out into this big thing that, you know, like it's hard to justify sometimes like doing stuff like for free or like on spec or however you want to call it. But if you're confident in it, it may work out. And it's like another, like we were saying with the other stuff, it's just an investment. It's like instead of spending money though, you were spending your time as the investment there.
Oh, for sure. And now, I mean, off the back of me having a break and everything, and I did some work North Lane for that 5G artwork, which for me was huge. I didn't expect to do anything more after that because I'd done much for them previously under the Alien cycle, which was their previous album. And they came to me to do the Clockwork single. And I was like, oh, this is ridiculous. This is the best job I've ever been put on. I really pushed myself, 3D and typography. And this has led to now I'm doing their artwork for their new album that's going to be coming out. And like, if I said to myself when I was at university, and in 3 or 4 years' time, you're going to be doing an artwork for their biggest record to date, I've been like, no, I'm not doing that. You're fucking with me. Like, there's no chance I'm doing that. There was a period at university in my third year where Lane had their lead singer Adrian had left the band and unknown for him, and they didn't think that would come back from that. And everyone was like, yeah, North Lane are done. And we did this competition on YouTube where they put out a thing for their new vocalist, and Marcus came on board. He wasn't the traditional vocalist for a metalcore band at all. He could sing and he could scream, but it's peculiar for him to join North Lane. And then they ended up choosing him, and then they released the single Rock, which was on the Node album. And it was that first single back with the new vocalist. And I remember listening to it at university with Fraser and just being like, this is like the best thing I've ever listened to in my life. It felt like the soundtrack to the rest of my year of finishing my degree. And fast forward to now, and I'm working with him, chatting to Josh, the guitarist, very, very regularly on Instagram. It's just like so surreal how life can turn itself around.
Yeah, that's dope. And I mean, you deserve it. You should be definitely super proud of that because,
thank you, man.
You know, we all run into like tons of issues along the journey. And like, I feel the same way with just already having the privilege to be freelancing. And like, I'm not, you know, I don't have like all this dispensable income yet or anything, but I'm actually surviving, which I never thought I'd be doing only like a few years out of school and everything. So I've just realized like you kind of have to throw yourself into that like deep end like you did when, or I guess someone else threw you in, but when that happens, you have to do that because it helps you like think on your feet. You're never going to feel like, oh, this is the perfect time to do this.
You have to keep going, man. Like, I've seen what you've been doing, and it's going, man. Keep going, because at the start of my freelance reign, whatever you want to call it, I had one client that came in, luckily, the month that finished at an agency, and this was on a whim. And the budget was okay, but I was like, I'll do it. It's a bit of branding.
Yeah.
This event I think it was in Texas. And yeah, I mean, that period of, I think it was like the first year and a half that I was doing freelance, the clients that I had were so strange and like so varied. You just kind of have to pick yourself up and do that, and then put your stamp on that work. I mean, I did stuff for like some German tech companies, like branding for them, and it was a period where I did branding and merch design for a startup dog brand, like an Off-White, sort of, say Off-White, right? The streetwear brand, but for dogs.
Like a hypebeast dog clothes.
Yeah, hypebeast dog stuff. I remember being in New York, going over to meet a client and being like, how have I got myself here? How am I doing this? It's so strange. And you do the most random stuff, and I wasn't charging anywhere near what I should have been, but it was just to get the work in. I mean, yeah, shout out to all those people that took a chance on me at that time. There's so many that employed me at the time, and I don't think I was very well known at all. I don't think I had like 4,000 or 5,000 followers on Instagram. Yeah, it just took a chance on me, and I'm so grateful for them because it allowed me to push myself just do work on my own for a bit, working out of my kitchen and going to cafes. And that's part of the freelance grind. I say you have to do that. You
Yeah.
have to be living on a shoestring budget, to the point where you keep going and you get the bigger clients, and eventually you get to a point where you're running yourself to a business.
Yeah, definitely. So I was going to ask you what stuff you were kind of most proud of you've worked on, but it'd probably be the metalcore stuff now.
I think Clockwork, just because it was like Clockwork and 5G that I did for Northlane, because I was really uncomfortable. Well, it was my first delve into 3D. A lot of credit has to go to Nessa Bowl, Dan Linthwaite, and Ross Mason, just for like helping me get to that point. And just, they weren't doing stuff for me, but they were just showing me how to do things in Cinema 4D, because it's a bit of a minefield when you first get into it, when you're so used to just doing everything in 2D. So yeah, I guess those two bits are the most things I'm most proud of. I guess Edit All Points East campaign was really cool. Like my first big thing for Bring Me the Horizon. I'd just say that work, really. All the stuff that I've done for bands that I never would have dreamt doing, to be honest.
So I remember you mentioning, I think I either saw you write it somewhere or a post or something. You were saying something along the lines of like, oh, I worked for Northlane. Like now I could, this is like something I've always wanted to do. I'm good now.
Yeah. Well, at first I just did the merch for them, and I was just so stoked to do that. I did like the whole line for Alien, and then they went into other lines with different people, which is totally cool. I want other people to be working with them too.
Yeah.
And then there was a gig that I bought tickets for a year prior in Brixton. I was like, okay, I'll just message Josh on the off chance. Just want to say hey and say thanks for employing me. And then he got me a VIP thing backstage. I think that's when I put that post out.
That's dope.
I walked up those stairs and then I saw them all in the change room. Like, I completely froze. I mean, now if I'm going to see them, hopefully when they tour again, I'm not going to be that nervous. But at the time, I was just like, what the fuck is going on? I think I'm like so starstruck. I mean, anybody that meets anybody famous that they look up to, you're going to be starstruck. But it's just, I couldn't say anything for like the first 2 minutes, but it made me really appreciate how far I'd come. I think the stuff that I've done for Northlane and continuing hopefully the next piece that I do for them is the most proudest work. They are my favorite band, and it helped me so much through some dark times. I mean, it's quite cliche when people say a song or an album or whatever gets you through hard times, but they generally have got me through like my hardest periods in my life, from Node to Mesmer. Alien, I guess I was in a pretty good place, but and now new album I'm sure is going to be pivotal in my life. I'm so grateful for them, and they've repaid me really by letting me do the work for them, and I'm eternally grateful to them.
Yeah, and I always like believe when people say that, because I don't think I've necessarily felt that way about a individual artist or a group, but just music that I enjoy and like in general. It's such a vital part of like my whole process, not only creatively, but just like in my life, like how I go about things, that I can't imagine, it not existing, everything just being more boring.
When people say, I know some people that have been like, I don't listen to music, or
I
they'll
know,
say,
that's such a sad thing.
If I'm put on a deserted island, I would rather have films than music. And I'm just like, what planet are you on?
Yeah.
I could quite easily, I love films, quite easily ditch them for music. Like I don't know what I'd do without music, because it just brings you back to moments. Like I tweeted the other day about how music, listening to an album or a song, will take you back to a nostalgic part of your life. And that recently with Node, I'd listened to it again. It reminded me of a period where I had to get myself out of a hole, and I'm currently going through one right now. And listening to it again just gave me the same feelings of being like, you just got to fight through it. You got to keep going. You've got to make yourself better and work hard and go after yourself. And it's the power of music.
Yeah, and music has so much replay value. Like, I don't know how many times I could watch a specific film, you know?
Oh, for sure. Every year, playing are on my Spotify. You know, when they do that recap thing every year.
Oh
Like
yeah, they're
without
wrapped.
that, they're always in there because I just spend so much time listening to them.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's so important to have music. And it's helped me with design, I guess, as well.
Yeah, definitely. I know we were talking about your smiley face thing, but I also wanted to ask you about like why not maybe not why you came up with, but where'd you get the idea for that the little sword that you kind of see
Sword.
everywhere?
So the sword is I can't take credit for it. It's from Lord of the Rings. So it's the sword of Narsil,
Mm,
Isildur, uh, at the start of the Fellowship when he defeats Sauron
yeah.
with and he cuts his hand off with the ring in his finger, with the blade of Narsil. Just always been pushed towards. Well, I've just been so captivated by that character arc of Isildur, of him being a frontman for Gondor and him turning evil. I don't know, there's something about that sort of storyline where him defeating evil has made him evil and made him greedy. There was something about it that
Yeah.
I thought was so interesting, to the point now where I've got it tattooed on my arm. But
Oh yeah. I like the how it's just broken. It's a nice little touch to it, you know.
yeah, I mean the full sword, it looks cool, but I liked it broken. I just like the arc of that storyline.
Hmm.
Um, I'm pretty big on Lord of the Rings. I've grown up with in Warhammer when I was a kid, being obsessed with the films. I've read the first book. I haven't read The Two Towers or The Return of the King yet, but completely obsessed with it. Pretty much all of my tattoos are the Rings based.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's got a special place in
that's
my
cool.
heart, I guess.
Yeah, it's where I never really like. I'm not quite obsessed with it, but I've seen all the movies before, and I never really put that together because I always just see that little sword like in such small places, you know. And but I know it's you. Like you definitely really branded that broken sword for yourself because you see that
It
anywhere,
wasn't
and
intentional.
it's you.
I think it was literally a case of I was a bit bored of the smiley face and I wanted to expand on it. And I was like, okay, what is me? And I'm really into like medieval stuff and like
Hmm.
I guess you would just call it, I don't know what you would call it, but anything with swords, weaponry, just cool shit like that I'm really into.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of just a couple of days, years ago, I just did a bit of research and was like, well, how can I rebrand? How can I make it look cool? And I think I just saw something online of someone, I think it was Safe Haven's branding, and his logo looks like two little pieces of metal. And I
Oh
think that
yeah.
was just like, oh, okay, cool. Maybe along the lines of metal. And I was like, oh, what can be position from that? And I was like, oh, a sword. And I was like, oh, I'm obsessed with Lord of the Rings, so it makes sense to do that. No real other meaning other than just being just like the sword. I like Isildur. I like
Yeah.
Narsil. So yeah, I just thought, fuck it, I'll put it in, and it seemed to have gelled well. That's my brand going forward, I guess. I've gone that far of putting it on my body forever, so
Yeah.
I have
Now
to
you
stick
gotta
with it
keep
now.
it. Yeah, I've noticed like there's a lot of people that I know from online that I've talked to either now on the podcast or we've just become like a bit more acquainted like in messages. And there's just certain people that something as simple as their little profile picture is so iconic that I feel like changing it would be like crazy. Like with when I talked to Harry, like his little
Yeah,
HV
his red,
thing in the
the red.
red.
Anything that I
Yeah.
see it red, I see something on my Instagram feed and it's red. I'm like, oh, it's Harry's.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm trying to think of other brands really. I mean, yeah, Safe Haven. You know
Hmm.
his work right now. Like everybody's trying to copy him. It pisses me off, but it just shows how good he is. That
Yeah. His
he'll
work's insane.
create a trend that's just off his own back. And you know, it's super unique. Like the stuff he did recently with Sudden Death,
Hmm.
where he's done like this sculpts, of like,
It
like
looked like
orcs.
gum or
And
something.
yeah, but he tweeted recently of them being at his live shows.
Hmm.
Just like absolutely insane. That's something that's probably come from, I don't know where he works, if he's got a studio, but just from his studio, just like a small concept that can just on the big screen, people are vibing to it in the audience, like absolutely
Yeah,
mad.
that's dope. Yeah, that's kind
You
of like the
reckon
next level of when you're talking about like the billboard and the big out of home stuff, when it's actually integrated into like some kind of performance, like with the screens and like sound and
yeah.
everything.
Polygon as well. You're familiar with his work. He did
Yeah,
stuff.
and
He
like
did Nihilist
Malvita
Blues.
too, what you were talking about.
Like their work seamlessly across that. You recognize it straight away. Yeah, Polygon did all of the stuff for Bring Me the Horizon, for Ammo in on their live stage stuff, and just looked ridiculously good. It just translates so well. I think that's definitely something that I'd like to pursue. I mean, a lot of tours and stuff have been cancelled, but if I was to put some work into personal projects that maybe could elevate that, and I'm hoping that this current Northlane project will allow me to develop that stuff to being on screen, then great. I think when you see your stuff on a stage like that, I mean, that's probably the pinnacle of working in music, I'd say.
Yeah, definitely. You there?
Yeah, did you just freeze?
Yeah, you froze a little bit, but I heard you.
Sorry,
you just said pinnacle. That's like the peak, right? Pretty much.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll say it again. Yeah, the pinnacle is probably having your work on stage. It's all very well. It's great having it in physical copy and being on Spotify, Apple Music, streaming services. But I think, yeah, seeing it on stage, if you were to be at a gig and you'd be like, that's me.
That's dope.
Yeah, that'd be crazy. So that's essentially the goal.
Do you have
the next couple of years.
I know you kind of said like you're working on this client stuff and you're kind of getting a little bit more involved back online. Do you have any plans to post on the Dank Type anymore, or is it kind of done?
I think it's kind of done. Recently, someone tried to hack it, or someone successfully hacked it. I don't know how. Got into it, and then they sold it to someone.
Really?
For like $300, and then managed to get it back through the goodwill and good faith of humanity. Someone got it back for me.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was just a period where I wanted to. At the time when I started it with this guy called Alice, I felt at the time that those typography pages on Instagram were all just about like cursive typography, lettering, all of that stuff. And there was nothing ever that was like Swiss design, Helvetica, grotesque, anything like that was being shown at all. And I was like, well, there's clearly a market for this because I love this type of work. I think Swiss Graphics had a Instagram page at the time, but I was just like, yeah, fuck it. I'll start this page called Dank Type, a little brand out of it, and then post people's work. But I think now there's so many pages out there that have like succeeded space, like Graphic Index and Digital Archive. I think Digital Archive. Oh, they're killing it. Those are the places a lot where I would look for new people's work. So I think Dank Type's dead now. Maybe there's a future for it. I like the name. I've trademarked it.
Yeah, it's a good name.
So maybe something will happen in the future. But for now, it's a lot of work as well. Much work goes into posting stuff regularly like that. I had an app at the time, and I had loads of stuff and designed in Photoshop, taking people's work, crediting them, and then scheduling them. But there's so much work goes into that. And at the time, I felt a little bit like I was getting success off other people's work. And this is no shade to the people doing it. Yeah, but I don't know. I just would rather focus on my own work.
Yeah, that was.
Type is dead.
It's all good. Do you have any another one of the last few things I wanted to ask you if you have any? It's kind of freezing now. I don't know why. Let's see. I'm gonna just re-log in real quick, or like
Okay, man. Yeah, carry on.
Oh, there's that shit's going crazy. You saw that? Yeah.
Completely glitched.
One of the last few things I wanted to kind of ask you about then, if you're not really going to pursue the Dank Type thing too much, what are you planning to do? Would just kind of post more client stuff and just kind of be a little more involved on there?
I think so. I mean, I've had so much time off to reflect. and focus on my mental health. I've now got the right balance between design and having my own life outside of that. Whereas before it was just like client work, personal work, go to sleep, same again. Like never really had time for myself. So now like I've found that balance. You know, I enjoy exercising a lot. I put a lot of time into that and just doing stuff outside of design. But
that's good.
I think it will be client work going forward. I would like to put some more time into concept work because I think that is the only way that you're going to get new work unless you've got clients that you can show off. But I think just client work for now. I would like to actually continue this digital and some limited runs. I've seen what Utility Lab's been doing recently with his brand. Name escapes me right now, but what he's been doing recently is so sick. I'm a little bit more inspired now to continue that. But other than that, concept
That's
work,
good.
past client work, and then post digital. And the last thing I probably will start doing is I've noticed the trend with TikTok and how viral you can go for it. And but I'm very good in front of the camera. Yeah, reels and stuff like that. Not that I'm very good in front of the camera, but I've seen stuff like that Elliot dude do TikTok, and he's been killing it on there. And I've also seen stuff on TikTok where I've been like, this is cool that you've blown up and you've got a crazy amount of likes, but I don't know. I feel like I could do some content that maybe a little bit more spoke, like the artwork stuff, showing maybe behind the scenes of what I've been doing, maybe the process of what it's like in the studio. So I plan to potentially maybe deep dive into that, not to the point where it's behind private lines and blurring the lines between my private life and my online persona, but I'd very much like to delve into that because I do see the potential of just more viral, because I've just noticed recently with Instagram that the algorithm, for whatever reasons, fucked it for people. Like the views and the like ratio now, what it used to be maybe like 12 months ago, it's just completely changed. And I don't know whether that's down to people's work not being as good or whether it literally just posting enough. Like there seems to be like a weird process that you have to go through in order to get a really good engagement now, and it seems like you have to jump through hoops. I think like TikTok is
all the real shit.
I think that might be the best way now. You're more comfortable is to just push yourself into that space. And same with you, like you've been going down the YouTube route. I think that's a great way to put yourself out there more, because I'm on YouTube all the time and that's how I came across you. So I think maybe video format is probably the way forward, more engaging for people rather than Instagram, where it just kind of gets lost in a sea of you're scrolling never-endingly.
I saw someone talk about the new way they treat like the algorithm, and they said for a photo-based app, it's sure hard to see anything but videos, because everything's just reels.
I'm bombarded with it. Bombarded with. So I found with Instagram now that you'll look at something just in your explore feed, and you won't even engage with it other than clicking on it, and you go back out of it. Then my explore feed is full of that one thing. I'm like, that's not what I signed up for. I signed up for design for my design account. I want to see people's work. I want to engage with the community. Now it's just like filled with nonsense I'm not interested in, and I don't
I've clicked on few too many like sports things where like now it's fucked. Like I don't even want to see that stuff that often, and that's all I get is like shitty Sports Center news or some like, I don't know, like this is what this guy did, like he cheated on his wife, and it's just like an NFL player or something. And
like I don't give a fuck. I don't want to see that. If I was going to look for that, I would go on YouTube. Or where I would find that. It seems Instagram's a weird space right now. I'm a little bit anxious about coming back and seeing how much engagement I get. But again, you got to stop looking at the likes. I think it's a good thing now that they've put that thing in where you can actually hide the likes, and it just focuses on the quality of the work rather than like people liking it because so many people have liked it. And there's a designer that I follow called Jacob Boyles. I think he's one of the best out right now. If you're familiar with his work, go and check it out. He does a lot of artwork stuff, mainly for the music industry. But I noticed recently that his last few posts, he's hit the likes. And I was just like, oh, that's really cool, because actually I didn't even look at that. I was just looking at your work. Yeah, I think that might be the way forward.
Yeah. Yeah. It takes a lot of pressure because like it's hard not to be thinking about that stuff. And not only like they make it so you have to worry about it, or else the posts are going to be so limited. Like if they don't do well right away, they don't get pushed out to like the further audience or whatever. And that's the reason I've been using Reels slightly. Like it's kind of like begrudgingly, like I don't enjoy it as much as like flat design work, but I almost look at it as like an ad, of to the normal page or whatever.
I just think that's the way it's going now, man. I think, unfortunately, you have to put yourself out there even more. It's almost like you have to scream for attention. Like, look at me. You have to put your face in front of a camera. And I think that, fortunately, is the way it's going. Because I'm a bit of an introvert. So having to put my face on camera and talk to, the selfie camera terrifies me. But I know eventually I'm going to have to do it to get some attention if I want people to look at my work. So, yeah, I think it's pushing people out of their comfort zones as well now, to be a bit more, confident. So maybe it's a good thing.
Yeah, I get so nervous. Like something about the iPhone selfie camera. Like I can do these videos. I talk to all the podcast people, and like I don't really have too much issue with that anymore. I've gotten a lot more comfortable, but just pulling out the phone and like looking at myself, it feels very strange, and talking into it that way.
I'm the same, man. If I've accidentally got it on selfie mode and I click on the camera, I'm like, oh fuck, who is that? It's not me.
Yeah, that's good. One last thing I wanted to ask you before we go over to do the Patreon segment after is that, do you have just kind of any general advice that you could give to some younger designers? Because I know that a lot of people look up to you and kind of appreciate your work.
Sure. Quite a few bits of advice, actually. I mean, I'll do it in like bite-sized chunks. First one, don't be afraid to fail. Fuck up. Don't think that you have to be perfect. And I've learned that from all my failures. But also, I'm a bit Casey Neistat fan, and I like his approach of not really too precious about everything. When it comes to equipment or just the way you go out in life, and just push yourself out there. So yeah, don't be afraid to fail, because it tends to improve you rather than being told you're great all the time and perfectly tiptoeing your way around life. Second bit of advice, just keep doing concept work, because it does eventually put in front of the right people. For example, my job at Stereo, they hired me based on my concept work that I did, my personal projects, rather than client work that I showed on my portfolio site. They just said, they're like, we like your initiative that you've doing stuff outside of stuff that's paid. That always favors, I think. Another bit of advice: don't just follow trends. That's quite a given, isn't it? And it's quite easy to fall into that trap.
It's not really a given, I don't think. Like there
was like that whole plastic trend and stuff on a black background. Like it does get you noticed, but it just shows sometimes, I think, from if I was to hire an intern or hire someone now, I'd look at someone that's just trying to do something completely unique. Some really cool people out there right now that I've noticed that are doing some really cool stuff. That Jacob Boyles guy and Broken HQ, I think that's his name.
Oh yeah,
I love what he's been doing recently.
That's
where he's
Chris.
Been putting,
he's cool.
So putting a lot of like hand drawn stuff and really grungy textures, and it's almost like really industrial and like almost like a blueprint on top of artwork. I think that's so cool and original. So yeah, just stop following trends. Be original. Be inspired by stuff other than design. If I was to be asked what inspires you now, who inspires you, right? Obviously, there's people like aesthetically, like Dave Haven, David Rudnick. That are the givens, because their stuff's so cool. But I get inspired by other forms of media. For example, like TV shows. Mr. Robot has massively inspired me.
Yeah,
just because of the way that the whole series has been constructed, the storytelling in it, the way it's shot, makes you think differently, and it's made me think about the world differently. Um, I just look at other forms of inspiration, really, other than design, because you'll be surprised what you actually find.
Mm-hmm.
For example, in post digital, what inspired me to do those products that were not products. So I did like a chainsaw in the shop site to fill it out to make it look like a shop in the future, that in an apocalyptic world.
Yeah.
I did like those 3D mock-ups of like a chainsaw, like a jerry can, that shit. And that was inspired by The Last of Us and The Walking Dead. I was just playing that
yeah.
game and watching The Walking Dead and being in that world and being like, oh, that's a cool idea. But I never would have had that other idea if I just went on Pinterest.
Sure.
So,
all the little items
that's
in the world, huh? On Last of Us and stuff.
Have you played The Last of Us?
Yeah.
So on the second one, when I was going around, and I love in The Last of Us how favorite part of it, other than in stealth mode, is collecting all the little bits and bobs and artifacts around the maps. And yeah, that gave me that idea. That was just a game, and that was just me in some downtime rather than actively looking for inspiration. So
yeah, that's good.
That's a really good bit of advice, I think. Just look at other forms of content.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I really appreciate you coming to chat with me, and shout out to the people you mentioned. Yeah, Broken HQ, Chris, and James Boyle, was it?
Yes, Jacob Boyle. Jacob
Boyle. Yeah. And
I don't know him personally, but I just know his work's so sick. I always look out for it.
Yeah, definitely. And if you guys want to hear a little bit more, we're going to do a Q&A over on the Patreon. But other than that, thank you again, Dan, for coming on. It was great talking to you.
Fucking man. Guys, peace.
All right. See you, everyone.